Ready?
Yeah.
Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, September 10th meeting, regular meeting of the Clay Township Board. Call it to order at 6:02. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes, sir.
I believe you identified this meeting as Tuesday, September 10th.
October 8th. I don't know where I got that. Oh, we're going
To
to,
approve the
next on the
minutes.
That's where you
agenda
got
is
it.
to approve the minutes
Of September 10th.
Of September 10th.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I so move.
And I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing any discussion? Hearing none, that carries. Okay.
Public comments.
Any comments from the public? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to the action items. This has been, before we move to the first item agenda, I want to say this has been a very good and not insightful, but enlightening experience between the three of us going over these budgets over the last few weeks. And I think we've all had our issues amongst different various line items, and we've come together very well to agree upon the budget that we should be approving today. So first up on the action item is the adoption of the 2014 salaries.
Doug.
We've all looked at that. Doug, do you have any highlights or issues you want to bring up?
No, not really. Just that I want to make a point here that I had the attorney make sure that I was correct in this, that it's 2014, during the election, we cannot raise the salaries, right? We have to do it this year. Where am I?
Well, the code provides actually that you can't reduce a salary in an election year, and sort of the reasoning behind it is that they don't. So, the actual text of the language says that in a year in which there is not an election of members to the township body may not vote to reduce the salaries. Basically, they don't want you lowering your salary a year before an election year as a campaign tool is sort of the reason behind the law. So, to Doug's point, I think everything we're doing is fine, and that the code really is speaking to lowering salaries in the year before an election. So,
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, the adoption carries. Next up is adoption of the 2014 budget.
Okay, the highlights that I gave you guys, I sent to you, I kind of like to go over the entire 2014 budget, next year's budget. And what I'd like to do first is go through all the funds real quick, and then we'll go back, because what we need to address more is what's in the general fund budget. But I'll give you an overview of all of the other ones. Okay, first of all, this year's budget, 2013's was $10,228,628. For 2014, it drops to $426,000, a 4% decrease. So it'll be down to $9,802,250 if it's approved tonight.
9 million.
I'm sorry.
$9 million.
I'm sorry. It's 10 million and it's dropping down. 10,000,002 and it's dropping down to 9,000,008. I'm sorry. Thank you, Paul, for that.
That's a little different.
Yeah, it makes a little bit different.
9,000.
Okay, then the COAT, which is always a big thing. This year, for next year, it's going to go to $3,458,063. Okay, and there's going to be there's a difference between this year and next year of $185,277, which means it's going to go up that much next year, which is really good because that means people's getting back to work. When we see the COAT go up, that's the good thing. So, so we're going to have $185,277 increase in our COAT for next year. The next thing is the general fund. It's going to drop $1,850, so it's going to go down that much, and it's just like a 0.002%. The Township Debt Service Fund is going to increase $1,256, and we have no control over that. That's for the 2 fire stations and the Monon Center, their Central Park. So we really have no control over that. It's going up to $4,951,900, so $1,256. Township assistance is going from, we're dropping it $52,000. We're going from $172,000 down to $120,000. We've got a strong cash balance in there. If we have to go back, to do an additional appropriation, we can. We are moving the caseworker from full-time to part-time next year. And let me explain something going back to our salary ordinance. Debbie is the only one that's a full-time employee, other than I come in every day to debug her. But our caseworker is going to part-time. So we have a very small office, and we do a lot. If you go back, I went back and I looked at a lot of different townships and see what they were paying, and it was amazing. Our per capita in our general fund, our category 1 was $2. And it was $2.06.
That's great.
And everybody else ranges higher, other than Westfield's, like 1.5, I think $1.55. But the other townships around us, including Marion County, goes up to as much as $10 per capita in their office. So the reason I'm saying that, it's just a point to let people know out there that we have a very small office and we do an awful lot. And that's why it's important that raises are given out, especially to Debbie for everything that she does, because she will be, come January, she will be the only full-time. Yes, I will come in and work every day. I will come in and see her smiling face. But again, that's why, we're able to manage this so well, and I thank her for that too. Okay. Township assistance, I told you that. Okay, fire fund, it's going to increase $30,013. It's going up to $1.3 million. And I told you part of that was the COA from Southwest Clay that's going to feed into that. If you have any questions of that, I do have our accountant here today, Angie Stino. Our park non-reverting capital fund. And let me explain that. The Park Non-Reverting Capital Fund is the fund that we use for park development, right? So it's going to drop down to $2.5 million. It was up to $2,558,000 this year. So we're going back to $2.5 million. And basically, majority of that, we get it that's what we get per year is around $2.5 million. It depends on what the total will be when the COA comes in. It changes several more times before we get to the end of the year. So when we get our 1782 notice, then DLGF will say, well, you need to put your COA here or there. No, that's not their decision. We make sure, first of all, that we give the percentage, which Crow Horwath figures for us, the percentage that goes into that non-reverting fund. That's the first thing. And then the rest of it will go into the fire fund and the general fund. Okay, so that's a non-reverting fund. And then our park and recreation from the 1312, which is on the second page, it dropped $7,000, so we went from $107,784 to $100,000. So overall, our budget went down. Our budget for next year will go down $426,378, or 4%. That's overall. So I wanted to tell you that before we got into it. So if you have any questions, we can start. I mean, if you don't have any questions, then we can start basically go through the general fund, or maybe since the general fund's the big one. Is there any questions on any of the other funds? The rainy day fund has about $81,000 in there, and we use that only for emergencies. So that if we have to get an additional appropriation, and that's where we would go and get the money.
Is that your discretionary fund, Doug?
Yeah. Okay. So if we go get it, I'd like to build that up. One thing I did find out, and I don't plan on doing it this year, but maybe in the future, is at the ITA conference, they do allow townships now to basically encumber, or not encumber, but transfer 10% of their annual budget into the rainy day fund. So if we ever decide to do something like that, right now, I don't want to mess with this here. Our budgets are too close, and I want to keep it that way. But if you have any questions for the township fund, the debt service fund, the fire fund, or either one of the park funds, I'd like to answer them now, and then we'll get into the general fund and get through that.
I just have a comment, and I don't know how you plug it in, but right now, our economy is hinging on a whole bunch of decisions that are in Washington. But I was listening today to some of the things they were saying, that people were being forced out of their home, like, for instance, in Lake Mead, because it's government land. And then they're talking about the Social Security checks. I mean, I don't know what it's going to do to the people in Clay Township that are really, truly needy. And I wanted to be sure that if all of a sudden there was a run on the township, that there was money somewhere that we could use.
We try to budget what we actually need. And it's been pretty high last few years. So since we haven't spent it, that's why I'm backing it away so much. You think 52,000, but we didn't know what was going to happen during the last 3-4 years. We had no idea. So now's the time I decided, we're not using it, let's just back it down. We have a good cash balance in our township assistance. So what I would have to do is just come to you, say, I'm going to do additional appropriation, so we need to move money in there. So we're fine from that standpoint. Okay? And like I say, just make sure people go back to work so we can get the code continue to go up. That's always good.
Amen.
Any other questions?
We're moving on to the general budget then now, Doug.
Okay.
So first, I think we should point out aside from the line item M, which are the grants, the other changes that have been made since this was advertised would be reduction of cemetery and weed control by $4,000, taking it from $40,000 to $36,000.
Right.
And eliminating under line item O, section A, getting rid of that $6,000, taking the money saved there and moving it to line item M, making line item M $240,000, now $250,000.
That's correct. Same as this year.
Does anybody have any questions or comments about any other items we have not addressed in the budget already, before we get to the grants?
Like I say, there wasn't very many changes on there, and that's why I highlighted it for you guys. There's the salaries, and then the part-time I reduced from 16,000 to 13,000 for next year. I increased our website from 5,000 to 7,000. Legal notices from 2,200 to 2,500, $300 there.
And that partly due to advertising in multiple papers, so we all agree.
Right. We now advertise in 3 papers. And now the cemetery weed control, we dropped it down, so it's only increasing $1,000 there, 36,000. The contracts, we've now left them the same, so there was actually no change there. And then on service and supplies for the Home Place Library and Museum, that went down $4,000. I'm sorry, no it didn't.
You said under contracts that's not changing, but we're adding 10,000 to that, I thought.
Yeah, now the contracts, the grants are now the same. It's now 250, the same as
Yes,
last year.
okay, thank you. The NF, service and supplies for the Home Place Library, it's went down 4,000, I'm sorry, went down 4,000. And then the O, which is the trustee's request, went from 10,000 to 0. Okay? And those are the only changes. If anybody else seen any other change, I'm not aware of. And I'm talking about, you would have it highlighted if it was $1 changed on there. So if like I say, there's not very many that was actually even changed. We kind of basically, after 7 years, you'd think I'd get this right now, right? So. Let's move on to the grant money. It gets harder and harder every year as more and more people ask for money. And there just isn't always enough to go around for everybody. All I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and read the organization and the amount of money allocated for them. Anybody is welcome to contact any of us for detailed explanations as to why. But this has been a strong debate amongst the three of us for some time, and the nature of government is compromised, and these are the numbers that we feel best serve the constituents of Clay Township. Carmel Clay Historical Society, $6,000. Carmel Dad's Club, $30,000. Promising Futures, $5,000. Hamilton County Alliance, $1,000. Hamilton County Leadership Academy, $1,000. Janus Developmental Services, $30,000. Meals on Wheels, $30,000. Prevail, $30,000. Prime Life, $30,000. Booth Tarkington Theater, $2,500. Carmel High School Exchange Program, $2,000. Carmel Clay Public Library.
Excuse me, Mr. President, could you go back
Slow down.
to the Booth Tarkington and slow down just a little bit?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Booth Tarkington Civic Theater, $2,500.
okay.
Carmel Clay Schools Exchange Program, $2,000. Carmel Clay Public Library, $19,300. Carmel Sister Cities Program, $1,000. Carmel Community Players, $5,000. Alternatives Program, $1,800. Trinity Free Clinic, $30,000. NAMI, $400. Gleaners Food Bank, $10,000. Chauncey's Place, $7,000. Carmel High School Ambassadors, $8,000. And Carmel Clay Schools 4-H is receiving nothing because they did not request this
late.
year.
Correct.
Yeah. The total amount appropriated for grant money this year is $250,000. And I think that concludes the discussion on the general fund. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the budget.
And I second.
Okay, when we say the budget, are we talking about the general fund, or are we talking about the entire
You
budget?
want to break it up?
You want it broken up? I've just got adoption of 2014 budget as the action item.
I'm fine with you doing the entire amount, which is,
$9 million.
$9 million, yeah.
Can we have a motion to approve the yearly township budget of $9,802,250?
I so move.
And I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none. The 2014 budget stands approved and accepted. Any information, or excuse me, Resolution 2013-10-08-01 approving the EMS budget. Doug?
Yeah, every year when we do the budgets, we have a joinder with the city, and since we still have it as far as the fire contract and everything, several years ago, the city and township got together and they came up with establishing a fire service capital fund. Basically, it's an ambulance fund for user fees. And under the ordinance, City of Carmel, we must do a resolution every year approving that amount. I don't know if you guys got a final on that. I put it in the resolution, the amount they're asking to spend. But I've got copies also of that proposed ambulance fund. The thing about this is not taxpayers' money. It's ambulance user fees. So what they bring in from, if they come out and transfer you to the hospital, then they charge that user. There's no property tax, there's no other tax involved here. And so this year, the amount in the resolution, it's got $1,521,718. And we need to approve that, and then I will send a signed copy back to the city, letting them know, unless you have any concerns. I do have a breakdown. It's the same thing which you got at the joinder, but I can give this to you if you want. That way, you do have a copy of it again.
Thank you.
And I even have their, the date.
They just take their budget and then our percentage, and that's where we get the number. Is that accurate?
No, they just, whatever they receive goes right into that fund.
Okay. Whatever they receive from insurance companies and
Yeah.
what they collect.
Right, that's right. So whatever they collect, that's what they have to spend. If they have to cut back on something, they do, but I was amazed when I seen the 1.5 million this year, but as you can see, it's doing quite well.
Well, almost 77%, and, you know, it goes up, just technology and the stuff on the back of ambulances, and most of it's one-time use stuff.
And I know we've talked about it before, but this is probably one of the best things that the township and the city did several years ago was start this ambulance billing fund, because Category 4, if you go back and you look at the general fund of the fire department, Category 4 is blank. There's nothing. All of it comes out of this. And so it's been quite helpful.
Do we have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. Resolution 2013-1008-1 carries.
Information.
Any information items, Doug?
Just a couple of things. Went to the ITA conference, and I told you a little bit about that. Also, every year you got to sign the nepotism policy. So in our next meeting, I will have the form that you signed last year about nepotism. We, by having a family member working for us or whatever is, we can't do that. Or contracting with a family member.
We
can't
don't,
do
though.
that.
Just for the record, we don't have any relations in this office. So
Right. So,
I hope we have no relations in this office.
Sorry, Dad.
so that, and then I want to let you know that I will also have the attorneys put together a resolution to do away with two of our funds. And that's the Community Life and Learning Center Fund. We have money in there we need to get rid of, that we will actually dissolve that fund, and we also will dissolve the 2002 COIT fund. And I expect, since the 2002 COIT fund was money that was to go into the fire fund, that's where it will end up, okay? And then the CLLC fund, which was paid out of the general fund of the township, that money will go back into our general fund. But we're gonna be closing out those two. I'll bring a resolution at the next meeting.
Do you have approximate idea of the value of those two funds? How much are in them?
Okay, Debbie.
Not to
It's
put you on the
a
hot seat.
lot. Yeah, maybe I do. Yes, I do. The CLLC is $56,268. That will be going back in. That will be going into the general fund. And the special 2002 COIT is $3,681, which is going into the fire. And I'm speculating unless the attorneys tell me differently. But I went back and looked and see where those things, where the money originally should have went in the first place, or what we bought it out of, and I just feel like we probably should just put it back in. Okay. Other than that, I think that's all I've got right now.
I have a question, but it doesn't relate to this necessarily, I guess. What are we going to do with the old fire station that's out on 116th Street?
Well, let me tell you what we're using it for right now. When the parks moved out of there, the Matthew 25 Center up at Mount Carmel came to me, and they had, what they do is they take in a lot of things. But one of the things they take in is furniture, and I'm talking about appliances, all kinds of furniture, from bedroom furniture to living room furniture to dining furniture, and they stockpile it. They had a stockpile at like 4 or 5 different places. They actually came in and took me out and said, look, Doug, this is what's going on. So we went to like 4 or 5 different locations. And I said, well, you know, maybe we could put you out here in this old fire station. So we went out and looked at it, and they fell in love with it. It's nothing fancy by any means inside, but they fell in love with it. And now they have those 4 locations, it's either 4 or 5 locations of furnishings are now all in that fire station.
When, like, for instance, when Kittle's in their outlet store, when something sits on the floor for over 30 days, they load up a moving van and haul it over there.
Oh, is that
I
right?
mean, they get it in huge bulk.
And-
That's not, them being in there is not costing the taxpayers any money.
Nothing.
They're covering all the bills,
They
right?
pay, right, exactly. They pay for the electric, they pay for any repairs that need to be done out there. I don't pay a dime for anything.
It's good.
So
So
they
unt-
do
until
take
really-
care of it.
Until that building becomes a hazard,
Yeah,
a structural
yeah.
hazard, then there's no,
Yeah.
we're not pressed.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the way that it was with the Life and Learning Center. I mean, it got to be a real nightmare.
Oh, we're losing money.
Right.
No, there was a lot more issues with that than this. That they just stepped up and taken care of it. And I really appreciate what the Mount Carmel Matthew 25 Center has done. They are just remarkable what they do. The Trinity Free Clinic's in there, and that's, I'm glad you guys gave them, I'm glad to see that they received 30,000. I mean, you know, it's remarkable what they do for this community. And I mean, it's just not Carmel Clay. I mean, it's throughout the county that they do that stuff for. As far as the furniture out there in that fire station, it's not just for Carmel Clay. It's the county. They've been going into Marion County. And, you
They
know.
can't get rid of it fast enough.
I mean,
they
it
really-
comes and it goes. I mean, it's in and out.
In doing that, they're receiving funds from other areas too. I mean, our 30,000 isn't
You know
just
what, I
carrying them.
don't know what they receive from other communities. I mean, I could ask them, and I know they receive some, but I don't know how much or anything. I've never really asked them that. I'm just glad they're in our community, I'm telling you, because
I think they get money from Mount Carmel.
Well, I know,
A lot of
the
money.
the lines are amazing up there when there is a need.
And every Saturday morning, I mean, I know our church takes Panera stuff up to that center. I do it on Friday nights. And Saturday mornings, man, thank God that Panera has that kind of food to give out.
I've got friends that volunteer up there on Saturday.
They do more remarkable work, remarkable work.
Now that we've approved the $9 million, do we have any financial questions from the board?
No, I think we pretty well went over that before.
Any board comments?
I just would like to know, as a informational item, Doug, what type of information is being given to Home Place about what's going to happen in terms of their fire attacks and the things that they're gonna have to watch out for? Are we sending them anything
well,
or talking with their people at all?
I've talked to some people already about this. Some of the people I've talked to just kind of blow it off and say, you know, oh, well.
Do
I
they
mean,
understand it could be upwards of?
You know, and I'll tell you what, I want Ms. Stino to say a few things, but because it has to do with the COA. You guys brought up the COA the last time. And I noticed that our AV actually went up. Early reports come back at 197 million, which is good, but I'm anxious to see where it does come. I mean, I think it's gonna go down some, but some of the people I've talked to, that they were fine with it.
But we're gonna, we're gonna have this discussion probably several times between now and next spring.
Next spring.
By not funding the city like we've been doing for the last several years with the extra money,
COA?
it will help, we could use that to help alleviate the tax burden on the constituents within the unincorporated area.
And that's why I want Angie to say a few things. So Angie, if you would step up and talk just a little bit about the COA that we have from Southwest Clay that goes to the city, and basically how long that might last, so.
Sure, thank you. As you all know, we do provide additional funds, COA funds to the city. And really, the goodwill amount I think you've been given, I'm gonna call it that, it's outside and above the contract amount. What that really was driven from is that the city came to you all and said, the COA calculation is based in arrears. So when COA money is distributed, it's not current. It looks to years past income, as well as it actually takes into an account the prior year's collections. So they had asked for assistance because of how they phased in the annexation piece to help fund some of those fire services. 2015 should be the last year. 2014, pay 15, that area is 100% annexed. So the city should be able to tax 100% of that assessed valuation for those owned services. That then would free up some of the COA revenue that you all have been giving them to use for other means. As far as notification, of course, everyone in the township received through the public hearing the 2 advertisements that go in all the newspapers. In addition to that, there aren't any other statutory requirements in notifying taxpayers, except that it's in the paper. I know you all have, if viewed on TV, you'll see that you probably won't hear anything until June 30 tax bills go out. And that's just kind of typical with any bill that you pay until it actually hits the mailbox. Will anyone come and probably have any conversation? But you will have a lot more flexibility with the use of COA after 2015, if you choose to do that. I mean, that's always your decision. There isn't anything in contract that provides for that you have to give that additional amount. That's agreed upon every year, so that's really in your court as to how you want to handle it.
How much was it this year? It was,
I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it. It was 400. It was 432,247.
do you project it'll be near the same for next year?
Yeah, I don't see, given that COA is actually supposed to go up again next year, I don't see any change on that necessarily. The split that we use with them is pretty standard, and really, in the calculation itself, we kind of go through and allocate the COA attributable to each of the funds. Primarily, your COA is really driven by your parks debt service levy, so a lot of it's coming from there. So a lot of it actually is retained in the township for your all's use anyway. And the split between the assessed valuation between the annexed and unannexed area has really been constant. So even though the larger value changes, the split's always been about the same percentage. So I don't see any major change. And I think they realize that as well, that as they get closer, there won't be a need to come and ask for those funds based on conversations Doug and I've had with their accountants, but.
Anybody else have any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other board comments? Any announcements?
None.
Do we
Next
have
meeting will be December 10th. Does that work for everybody?
It doesn't work for me.
Well, let's try to get this straightened out, okay? What Tuesday in December will work?
The 3rd would work great for me.
I don't have my calendar here.
The 10th, unfortunately, I'm having hip surgery that day.
Ooh.
Well, wouldn't you rather be here than there?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so the 3rd,
All right.
how about
That's
Mary,
fine.
Matt, that work for you
I
guys?
think
As far as I know, I don't have my calendar here, though.
Okay, we'll
Want to
make,
float that out, and we'll get back to you on that?
yeah, just let me know. Unless something else comes up where we need to have another meeting for something. But I can't think of anything. I appreciate all your work on that general fund stuff, the budget.
It's a lot of work, I'll tell you that.
Well, more now. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 6:35. Thank you all.